Hi guys, we're going to start the webinar in about 2 minutes. On the left-hand side of the screen, there's a little text box. So if you guys can't hear me or something with the audio is off, just send me a little message. If everything is good, we're good. You don't need to do anything. We're just going to wait about 2 more minutes before we kick it in gear here. And throughout the webinar, if you guys have any questions, what I would recommend doing is type it in the message box, and then if I have time at the end, I'll address as many of them as I can. And people are already typing me questions, so we'll see how many I can get through at the end of the presentation. I'm going to try to set the limit at about 50 minutes so I can answer questions for 10 or so minutes. All right, we'll give it another 60 seconds and then we'll get started here. Okay, so I think we're about ready to get started. The topic of today's webinar is acquiring clientele as a virtual recruiter. The demographic for this meeting, and about half of the people that signed up are existing human resources people, and the other half are students in graduate school and undergrad, kind of exploring the human resource field. So if you guys haven't joined our meetup group, it's meetup.com/linked, and about half of the people have joined already. If you haven't, you can do it after the seminar. You can add me on LinkedIn, and you can sign up for the newsletter with that really weird URL there. And you can also send me a quick email. The sponsors are below. Those are some of the other companies that I own. I'm going to be talking rather fast. So again, if you guys have any questions, just text it in, and then at the end of the event, I'll try to address as many as I can. And in red here, essentially what I just said, chat with me, send me the message. No one else can see the question except for me, so I can address it at the end. If there's any audio problems, not a huge deal. I'll try to repeat what I'm saying. Just type in audio repeat in the chat, and I'll do that. This is being recorded, so at the end of the webinar, if you want me to forward you a copy of it, I can do that. I think it takes 24 hours just to cycle through the system and get ready. As a brief introduction, I'm Brian Ortiz. I'm the CEO of Cadence Staffing, and I also own a holding company called Polarity Holdings, so I'm involved in business development. I started my first company probably around the age of 23. I'm pushing 40 years old now, so I've been doing this for 16 years or greater. I've been hiring technology, sales, marketing, and executives all throughout my career. Entry-level, mid-level, executive jobs. I've done it all. Recruiting as a specific focus, I started in 2011, and that's when I launched Cadence Staffing. I had a huge number of job seekers emailing me daily. I had maybe 25 interns and 20 job seekers every single day. I put all those people into a database, and I thought to myself, what am I going to do with these people? So anyway, that's kind of how I started the staffing company. Besides those passive methods of getting candidates, all of the methodology that I use is specifically internet-based to acquire all of my staffing clients. Back in 2000, I used to do postings on local job boards that actually went out to the newspapers. Don't do any of that anymore. Everything's on the internet. All of the job posts and candidate resume searches are done for free through resources on the internet. 10 years ago, I was heavily involved in using Monster.com and Career Builder to find talent. I don't do that anymore. I don't have to. That cost a fortune, so much more economically viable doing it the free way, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to talk about something called an executive recruiter toolbox. Those are just the advanced methods for becoming a virtual recruiter. And it'll be a brief conversation. You can stick around. You can hear about that. Anything with the asterisk toolbox, that's what I'm talking about. It's that advanced recruiter toolbox. You'll see that throughout the presentation. Okay. Lesson number 1, there are 2 types of human resources work. There is the traditional HR jobs, which are W-2 employees, and then there's the independent virtual recruiting, which are 1099 independent contractors. This webinar is going to focus on the 1099 independent contractors, but the main gist of it is that throughout someone's human resources career, and I've known dozens of people who have done this, they've toggled back and forth between being a traditional W-2 employee and a HR recruiter. And some of the factors involved are economic situations in our actual economy. If the economy's doing well, people tend to toggle back and forth. If it's doing bad, they also transition. Some individuals don't like the hourly component of being a traditional salaried employee. They want to be more entrepreneurial. So then they switch to the independent HR recruiter side. And again, you guys can download this webinar if I'm going too fast after I'm done. It'll take about 24 hours. There are some themes and definitions that I need to go over. And one important point is that I'm starting out basic, and then I'm going to get a little bit more advanced as we go along. So the first couple of slides are going to be generally fairly basic. So becoming a contract, contingency, retained, or paper candidate virtual recruiter, and I know those are a lot of terms, they can provide anyone with the ability to earn a living. Some people want to transition from in-house employees, as I mentioned, to independent HR workers, and that's fine, and that happens all the time. Also, recent graduates who are looking to gain real-world experience often choose the independent track first to enable them to get the full-time job of their dreams. Contingency-based working arrangements mean that clients pay only when the candidate is actually hired. Now, this arrangement works better when you, as a recruiter, have some sort of financial cushion so that you're not spending months recruiting for a company and starving and not being able to pay the bills. So the flip side to contingency recruiting is payouts are typically much greater than for paper candidate recruiters. Now I'm going to define what a paper candidate recruiter is. A paper candidate recruiter is also called a milestone recruiter. That's when a HR recruiter is paid based on certain metrics. And one of the most favorite metric is per delivery of qualified candidate. You'll be paid much quicker relative to a contingency-based recruiter, but the payouts are typically much less. Full-time virtual contingency recruiters typically earn 2 to 5 times more than full-time paper candidate recruiters. So everyone keep that in mind. Now, the higher end of the spectrum, those are retained recruiters, and they are typically paid a set price before sourcing potential candidates. Retained recruiters often work on an exclusive basis with their clients, and they're typically working with well-known, larger, prestigious, publicly traded companies. Companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, they're going to have a lot of retained recruiters, and those recruiters are going to be paid very well. Contract recruiters, those are recruiters that typically work with clients on an hourly basis. And the next slide is going to explain what the typical wage rate is, or hourly rate for contract recruiters. Headhunters, those are a subset of contingency recruiters, and they work with clients to fulfill jobs that are typically specialized in a certain field or position, which requires a specialized skill set. Headhunters usually work on a contingency basis. So here is the recruiting grid, which is really important when you're deciding what type of structure should I actually be considering here. Contract recruiters, retained recruiters, contingency recruiters, and paper candidate recruiters. The experienced recruiters are usually bulked on the left-hand side of this grid, while the newer recruiters all kind of go towards the right-hand side. Again, I mentioned before, retained recruiters typically earn the most per year. But again, you have to work up to that. It's very difficult to interact with a large company and basically express enough value to them so they're going to have confidence in hiring you as a retained recruiter, unless you go through the foundation steps one at a time. So you guys can take a look at that grid, and again, you can download the report and go over all that information after the webinar. Here are some more themes that are going to continually pop up throughout the webinar. LinkedIn, and I know you guys are familiar with Indeed, Monster, and Career Builder. Those are places that can be used to find the traditional contingency or contract, rather, hourly worked as a contract recruiter. These jobs are competitive and usually require 5 or more years of experience. So if you're trying to get a job as a contract recruiter right fresh from college, it's going to be a little bit difficult. You're going to be competing with a lot of people, and the supply is generally fairly low. So there's going to be a lot of candidates for each open job. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. LinkedIn can be used on the flip side of this as an independent HR person to acquire clients. And again, that helps out for people who lack the 5+ years of experience. You can use LinkedIn to acquire all of your clients without paying a cent. So these are some important notes coming up. Large free databases of both passive and active job seekers are available. You don't need to pay Monster or Career Builder exorbitant fees. And at one point, I was paying all of these job boards probably $20,000 per month or more. I don't do that anymore. I don't need to. I just sort of research different ways, and this is what I've come up with. So the processes that I'm describing and that I'm going to describe, one of the other key points is that as an independent HR professional, these processes are scalable. You'll be able to work with interns, offshore workers, other contractors, and these guys can help you quickly obtain even more clientele. In other words, you can build a team around you at a very reasonable rate. Lesson number 2, important lesson number 2, is that phone interaction mixed in with supporting emails and marketing collateral work best to land clients. And whenever I say clients, I'm always talking about the independent virtual recruiter HR side. Some of my associates and people who work for me as well, they try to do all of their selling via email, and they can do that, and it actually works. But for people who are new to this, I always recommend heavy phone interaction mixed in with supporting emails, and that will help you get the largest amount of clientele. Phone conversations should be needs-based and not sound like sales calls. So ask yourself, what areas does a client need help with? And there's a little chart that I have in the advanced toolbox that kind of gives you a blueprint for client needs. And also you want to be flexible in working with clients. And this doesn't mean reducing your required compensation. So even if you're new, you want to set a kind of a ground floor level of compensation that you're not going to go under. If you're going under a certain amount, the client's going to assume that the value that you're offering isn't spectacular. So you want to keep it within the range that I mentioned in that grid a few slides ago. Okay, so can I make ends meet being a virtual recruiter? Contingency versus paper candidate versus contract recruiting. For example, and we're going to use target jobs for $100,000 or more, a contingency recruiter is going to get about 30% of that. So if you're getting 5 clients per year filled positions, you're earning $150,000. That's good for only 5 solidified positions. That's not bad at all. If you were a paper candidate recruiter that charged $200 per qualified applicant delivery, you're going to need to deliver 750 candidates per year, or about 15 candidates per week, and that comes down to about 3 candidates per workday. Then you're going to hit the $150,000 per year mark. The amount of work required for the paper candidate recruiting is a lot more than the contingency style with the recruiting fee of 30%. But again, the paper candidate recruiters are just for new HR people just trying to get their feet wet. A contract recruiter making $75 an hour, which is in general about the average, would have to work about 38.4 hours per week to earn $150,000. Contract recruiting salaries are going to vary by the type of company that you're working with, by the location, and a number of other factors. But the range was in that previous grid, and you guys can review that later. So deciding between contingency and paper candidate models specifically, paper candidate models are often viewed as riskier than a contingency relationship to your potential clients. So you're putting yourself kind of in your potential client's mindset. If you are in need of a shorter payment schedule, which means you need to get paid faster, the paper candidate model typically makes more sense for you, because you're not going to have to wait until the client lands a job, and then there's often a 30-day turnaround between when the client actually pays you. So anyway, paper candidate models work better if you're in need of a faster payout. If a client has a $100,000 job opening, a contingency recruiter is charging a 30% fee. That's a $30,000 commission. That's pretty good. A paper candidate recruiter who charges $100 per candidate and $200 per candidate for higher level executive positions. Those are kind of the standard. If a paper candidate recruiter delivers 4 high-level candidates and 1 is selected for the position, the recruiter earns $800. The cost to the company is only 2.6% of the contingency recruiting cost. So if you're a paper candidate recruiter and you're just getting started, that's some of the information that you're going to put forth in order for the client to want to work with you. You can explain, my fees are typically 1/20th or more, 1/40th of what you're usually going to pay for a regular contingency recruiter. That will help during the process of acquiring a client. The paper candidate model is typically a harder sell because your client incurs less certainty. But again, if your intention is to minimize your risk and minimize time to payment, this may be the optimal structure that you want to consider. You'll also have the freedom to work with a larger number of clientele within a given time frame because your responsibilities aren't going to be as less. For a contingency recruiter, your responsibilities are typically higher than a paper candidate model. The clients are going to expect more as a contingency-based recruiter. Moving on. Cultivating relationships, demonstrating high value, and getting to that 30% contingency fee. Some new contingency-based recruiters often start out with a fee of 10 or 15%. They're just trying to undercut the competition, and by doing so, they're demonstrating low value to the companies that they're working with, and the respect and the referrals, those don't come in as much when you're dropping your fees. So whether you are interacting with a prospective client via email or phone, the most important thing that you can be aware of is the ability to both demonstrate high value and to identify how the client sees you, which is what I term your perceived value. If you can't demonstrate a base level of value that is above a certain threshold, prospective clients will not hire you, and they'll also not pay you reasonable commissions. So demonstrating high value for a 30% contingency fee, you must present a unique and compelling value proposition to clients that the other recruiters aren't presenting. Your message must be concise and direct, not muddied or muddled. Your identity, personal brand, and message must be consistent. Now, identifying how a client perceives your value. After interacting with a prospect, what I often do is I send out to-do items to the prospect. I give them a list of items that I need answered, and an example of that is an email requesting additional information about the company or about the specific job opening. Once I send out that email after the initial conversation, at that point, I can judge how engaged the prospect is in dealing with me. If the prospect is answering my questions fully, if they're getting back to me in a matter of hours instead of in a matter of days, I know this prospect is really interested in working with me. I'm going to do more work before I'm actually in a formal working relationship with the client. So ask yourself, how engaged / responsive is the prospect during this interaction cycle? And ask yourself, what are the areas of pain that the prospect mentions to you? Internal human resource departments in large or mid-sized companies, they're going to have a whole slew of issues that they want to have resolved or solved or done more efficiently. You're going to focus in on those issues. Next slide. Okay, now we're going to move to some of the more advanced topics. So how to use LinkedIn to acquire your clientele. One of the first things that you want to do is you want to build your LinkedIn network to a certain threshold. People feel comfortable communicating with those that have over 500 connections. If you're a student and you have 34 connections, it's going to be very hard to land a client because people are going to look at that and say, this individual is not really established. But I have a solution for that. So step number one is join groups on LinkedIn that comprise your clientele. You can join up to 50 groups on LinkedIn. So some groups have over 1 million members. Joining these groups will dictate the ease in which you can communicate with your prospects for free. Doing a search on LinkedIn for groups will typically have the largest groups appear first. Those are your ideal groups to join. Remember, you can only join up to 50 groups. Analyze that carefully. Don't join the groups that have a small amount of members or members that aren't relevant, because it will impede your progress in interacting with your potential clients. LinkedIn charges $10 per email if you're sending something called in-mails. So that's a large amount of money. If you're sending 5 or 10 emails a day, you're going to be racking up a pretty large bill. Communicating with group members, however, and that's in red there because that's important, is free. So you want to make the most out of your 50 groups and join those with large amounts of members. If your group has 300,000 members or 1.2 million members, you can you can target and email individuals, and you can search for specific characteristics of those people, and you don't have to pay any fees. That's key. You'll be able to email first-degree connections for free, and you can email second or third-degree connections only if you share a group. But again, you could always use that LinkedIn email and spend $10 per email. It's an absolute waste. You don't need to do that. So lesson number 3 or 4, whichever number I'm on, you can add a good number of open networkers to increase your first to third degree connections. An open networker is also called a lion. LinkedIn open networker. Again, it's called a lion. You can do a search and you can find these lions. They're basically people who are putting it out there that they will connect with people, even if they don't have a pre-existing working relationship with them. You're going to find out that you're going to source those lions and you're going to add them, and that's going to increase your network exponentially. With some of the techniques that I give in the advanced part, you could literally send out 4,000 or 5,000 connection requests per day. You don't want to do that. LinkedIn will get a little bit peeved. You can send about 150 connection requests per day. If you do that for a week or two, you will easily have over 500 connections within a matter of days. And again, your goal is to get over 500 connections. When somebody sees that in your LinkedIn profile, that's viewed as being reputable. Finding your prospects once your network reaches a critical mass. So we're moving on. So we specifically search for companies that are posting job ads on LinkedIn. There's over 150,000 companies hiring on LinkedIn. Those are all of our target clients. 150,000 companies utilizing LinkedIn. They all have issues. Our job is to resolve those issues. What you do is you can search by location and company size. And at first, it's better to target mid-size or small companies before going after the big fish. Once you identify a target list of companies based on size and location, you can see all of the active job posts that a company is making. 50% of the time, the individual that is making those job posts, the internal HR director, HR executive, that person their picture is going to be plastered on the top right-hand corner of the job post. That's going to be your target contact within the organization to pitch your independent HR recruiting services. So communicating with prospects via LinkedIn. Who do I communicate with? How do I know who is most likely to hire me? Well, this depends largely on the company size. For small to mid-sized companies, we usually recommend developing a relationship with whomever is posting the job ad. For larger companies, it's essential to identify the highest ranking HR official through LinkedIn, and you can do that through their wonderful search function. A prime way to identify a company in serious need of a virtual or paper candidate recruiter or any type of independent recruiter is to see who is posting the job ads on LinkedIn. If the CEO, CFO, VP of sales, or any executive outside of the HR department is posting ads, you can bet that this individual probably has other work he or she would like to be doing, not human resource work. These executive job posters are prime targets to communicate with. So in other words, if a CEO of a mid-sized company is posting human resource and job placement ads, odds are they're a perfect target to be talking to pitch your independent services. So here's a sample communication process. Number 1, identify your prospect. Start off with a targeted email or phone call. Mention the prospect by name if you're doing it by email. Mention the prospect company by name. Mention the specific job post or post that you have viewed, and then explain your precise value proposition that you offer. Discover the areas of pain that your prospect is enduring. Follow up with an additional phone call and or email. Once the client responds, set up a dedicated appointment for a needs analysis. A needs analysis is a traditional way to find out what the client needs, what the client's area of pain is. The advanced toolbox has a whole slew of sample needs analyses for you guys to take a look at if you want to do that, because it helps out a significant amount so you know what questions to ask. Moving on. melding phone and email interaction, keeping a CRM, customer relationship management tool in Google Docs. A CRM is a term that companies basically use to keep track of their customers. But in this instance, we're using it as a way for independent recruiters to keep track of all the people that you're talking with. You're going to be speaking with a horde of hiring managers. A CRM is basically a spreadsheet which enables you to organize everything. I have a sample one to show you too. The overall theme that I'm focusing in on too, again, is that phone interaction as your primary source of communication melded with email. That's the best way to do it. But the majority of your back and forth should be via phone. Phone always wins out when demonstrating high value. Your phone interaction ability will indicate to your prospective clients how you are going to interact with their prospective hires. If they don't like how you're coming across on the phone, they are not going to want to have you interact with their potential employees. So you can set up a basic CRM in Google Documents, fairly easy, and that's available in the advanced toolbox. One really important point is never schedule ad hoc meetings with clients. Clients will say, email you, can you call me right now? I have a question. The best thing that you want to do is for every interaction with your clients, always set a specific time and give a time frame as well. Say, hey, I have 15 minutes in this time block. That doesn't make you appear rushed. It doesn't make you appear unprofessional. It just basically sets the expectations that your time is extremely valuable. So having these instant meetings, typically it doesn't work well. Always set up a specific time and time frame to work and interact with your clients. So schedule all appointments in advance, and that's my from experience here. Kind of an offshoot of everything, and I always like to talk about one software program throughout all of these webinars. One of the software programs, and probably all of you guys have heard about it, it's called Reportive, and this is absolutely great for human resource independent virtual recruiting because it enables you, if you can't interact with someone via LinkedIn, to find their email address. So if you're not able to email a prospect through LinkedIn, due to them being a second or third degree connection, you can use Reportive as a Gmail add-on to identify executive email addresses. It's a Gmail add-on that you find in the Chrome extension gallery. So if you go to Google and type in Chrome extensions, then you go to the gallery, you type in Reportive, download Reportive, install it into your Gmail, and wow, it is very, very helpful. Typical email address structures for executives are those 5 examples: Stephen.Jones, S.Jones. By punching that into the compose box in Gmail, it will actually tell you whether that's the executive's email address. So you'll know if you're zipping it off to the right place or not. So Reportive will tell you when you have the correct address, and you can send those emails away and begin the interaction stage. Staying in touch with prospects that don't hire you immediately. There's going to be a huge number of prospects that say, at this point, we don't need an independent recruiter, but within the next 30, 60, 90 days, that will be something they're considering. And that happens all the time, and that's perfectly fine. So a good portion of the prospects will say, not now. Your job is to get them their contact information, their email, their phone number, and then you're going to follow up with them periodically. One of the suggestions is to create a monthly newsletter, ask your prospects for permission to place their email on the list, and newsletters should further cement your high demonstration of value. All of those prospects that don't hire you immediately, you're going to want to place them into your CRM system. And again, that was the Google document spreadsheet that you'll be creating. Follow your target prospect companies on LinkedIn. LinkedIn tells you the recent job posts that every company is making. You can go to LinkedIn, you can check out Microsoft and see that they're posting 3,000 new job ads. If one of your prospects posts 5 or 6 job ads in the last 2 weeks, that's a perfect time to interact with them to talk about potentially hiring you. Okay, so, and this text is a little small, so if you can't see it, we're just going to briefly go over the comprehensive virtual recruiter toolbox that some people may want and you may not. I've given you enough information now to kind of push you forward and get you going in the right direction. But again, if you need more in-depth information, this is where you can get it. So lesson number 1 is that the sources of finding candidates in 2015 doesn't have to be paid. You can find candidates and you can be a virtual recruiter without paying Monster and Career Builder huge amounts of money. So I've compiled a list of 50 free resume search and job post databases. You can't be a virtual recruiter unless you know where to get a good solid list of both passive and active candidates. I've done that for you. I have it in a spreadsheet. You'll never run out of people to interact with on that list. I also have a complete step-by-step LinkedIn communication and prospecting blueprint with screen captures. The screen captures take you through from the basic step all the way to the advanced step so you can efficiently target and land clients. The whole gist of this is that you want to be doing recruiting. You don't want to be sitting here trying to interact with clients for a significant portion of your workday. I usually set a amount of maybe 10% landing and interacting and managing clients and 90% of actually doing the recruiting work. If you're spending 80% of your day trying to find work, not efficient, you're not doing well, you need to do better. That will help you with that. You also get the templated, unique / high value proposition emails, phone interaction wording. The words that you use when you're speaking to your prospects on the phone will tell them whether you're a newbie or whether you're experienced or whether they should pay you a 30% contingency fee. All of those things are based on how you sound over the phone. And you also get the how-to tutorial on growing your number of LinkedIn connections in less than 2 weeks. That's key. If you have over 500, if you have 1,000 connections, prospects will look at you as a really good source of information and high value. So you're also going to get the sample Google CRM for tracking all your prospects, interactions, and sales. You'll be able to stay on top of all your revenue producing activities. The toolbox is only $19, and I send you an immediate email with all the information. And for my in-person seminar, I sell it for $249. So if you're on the webinar here today, you're getting a decent deal. You can email me at that address, brian.hughes@cadencestaffing.com for an immediate download. Some of the people that I speak to all day, one of their pains and the HR individuals is that they tell me they're kind of nervous on the phone. So what I developed is a mock virtual recruiter / hiring manager call session. This is where we're putting on mock calls where you're speaking to a potential hiring manager. Very, very valuable so that you can hear how you sound on the phone, you can get critiqued on how to improve, and it can help you get more efficient. Hourly consulting with me, rather expensive because I'm typically doing a lot of things. Most people don't opt for that. Most people just either buy the toolbox or opt for the mock call consulting package. But if you want the consulting, no problemo. Call me on the 646 number and we can talk about that. The other subset that we didn't really go into depth about is for people looking for the traditional salary jobs. Some of these are students who want to bypass becoming an independent recruiter. That is fine. That's great. For those people who want to go traditional HR jobs, we've got the masterclass ebook for HR professionals or soon to be graduating students. And again, I'm focused on efficiency. That will help you efficiently land jobs within the traditional HR field. You can increase your number of job interviews, master the HR interview strategies, increase your ratio of interviews to job offers. That's probably the biggest singular metric that someone looks for in efficiency. If you're going on 5 or 10 interviews and you're not getting the job offers, that's not good. Something needs to be adjusted. This masterclass ebook will help you with that. You'll shorten your time to hire. And the last part is, and this is, people often overlook this, is negotiating the most comprehensive compensation package possible. Some HR people believe that they don't want to make waves and they accept an offer, or they're not familiar with what they can ask for. You can ask for anything and everything under the sun. The ebook helps you out with that. That ebook will be available in 2 weeks, and it's also $19, and you can email that to get on the wait list now, and I will not raise the price. That's also going to go up in price probably to $49 right before it's published in 2 weeks. Questions. So if anyone has any questions right now, start typing away. There's a couple questions popping up on my screen, and I will try to address those, and then we can go on our way here. From Steven, he says, how many LinkedIn connections should I have before I start communicating with my prospects? And I may have mentioned it, but it probably wasn't clear. But in general, you want to have a few hundred or more. Once you have more than 500 connections, your profile is actually going to say 500 plus right next to it. That's good. That tells people your experience. It tells people you know what you're doing. It gives off a really good impression. So again, if you have 20 or 30 LinkedIn connections, becoming an independent recruiter might be a little bit difficult because people aren't going to view your value as that high. And again, we go through that in the toolbox. I show you how to get 500 plus connections within a matter of days. Okay. Question number 2 from Jennifer. Can I get clients strictly by using email? I may have actually talked about that too. Yes, but it's going to be more efficient. You're going to demonstrate more value if you meld in a good amount of phone interaction. A lot of my coworkers strictly use email, and that's perfectly fine, but you're going to be more efficient if you use the phone. If you're scared to do the phone interaction, if you don't feel like you're up to par, no problem. I can walk you through some mock calls and you'll be good to go. Next question. I've got Mike and Richard left here. So Mike, is it difficult to get hourly work as a contract recruiter? And that's something I mentioned in the beginning. If you're inexperienced and you're looking for hourly work, you've got your job cut out for you because you're going to be competing with people who have been in the HR field for 10 or 20 years. I'm not saying you can't get the hourly jobs, but it's going to be fairly difficult if you're brand new. Okay, now Richard's question. What do you advise for newly graduated students to do who are seeking a job in human resources with no prior experience? My advice, Richard, is to carefully analyze all the different types of human resource positions. Make sure you know where you currently stand in comparison to the other HR people. My general thought is that for new HR people, it's okay to try both. Try the independent route, try the traditional route, see where it takes you. If you're not landing the traditional jobs, you may want to go the independent recruiter route just to gain more experience. That looks so incredible on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, when you can tell a internal HR person, listen, I had been doing recruiting on my own for the past 6 months or a year. That shows that you're entrepreneurial. It shows that you know what you're doing. It shows that you can take on clients and deal with businesses and customers. So it's great. Either path, make sure you analyze it carefully. And again, invest some amount of time in finding a traditional job, and you can invest your other amount of time finding a independent position. Wow, it looks like that's all the questions, and I've done it in exactly 45 minutes. So I'm gonna give myself a hand. If you guys have any other questions, just email me at that Brian.Ortiz at Cadence Staffing email, and I'll do my best to help you out. Other than that, I've got to take off. I've got to do another seminar at 5 p.m., so I've got to do a quick Chipotle run. Other than that, appreciate everyone attending, and zip me off an email if anything comes up. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.